We're just two veterans that are connecting with other veterans in the community to talk about business and all things life.
Hi, I'm John from Scott & Parker. We sell beanies, scarves and socks.
G'day, I'm Steve from Vortrekker Australia. We're redefining the duffel bag.
And if you want to share your own service history, we have a digital platform where we will record that for you.
If you're interested in buying any of our products or interested in coming on the podcast, look at the links below in the description.
Steve, now going back to identifying, you mentioned identifying that niche product.
Yep.
Can you talk more around that? How did you do your research and what went through your mind?
Yeah.
Because you've got your product, the bag, but was that the first product you identified, or was it something you thought of, or how did you go through that process?
Yeah, the one good thing about my course was it forces you to go through multiple niche selection, products and ideas. But for me, coming out of service, it was really hard to engage my creative side of my brain. I've not really ever had to be a person that's been creative, really. So doing that was a big part of it. My advice to you, so this is the simple pathway. When you get to that point of niche selection, almost just stop trying to think about everything else and just think about the kind of things that you love. I'd suggest you get a big piece of paper, write down yourself, you in the middle, and then go, I have this interest, this interest, this interest. Whether they are things that you could actually pursue, that's irrelevant. It's more about highlighting, in a quick brainstorming session, what are the things that you're interested in. Ways that we can actually do that is you can actually just go through your Facebook, look at, scroll through, 50 times and see the kind of regular things that are coming up. For me, I love, my footy. I love my forward driving, my camping. There's some of those things that started building a picture and helping me not have to be creative and instead just look at the facts. And the facts were that these are all the different things that I'm interested in. Then what you start doing is, I spoke to a lady the other day. I was helping her on this exact topic. She was really stuck. And I sort of said to her, what are your interests? And she sort of said, we used to be into horses. And I said, well, if you ran a business in, the horse industry and you liked horses, is that not something you'd be interested in? And she's like, no, we purposely got out of that industry because I didn't want to, have anything to do with horses and the horse community and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, that's great because it would go on your piece of paper as horses is a topic that you have been interested in, maybe took up a lot of your time, but you can also weight it and say, I don't want to go down that pathway, and you sort of discount it. So I think that's also an important, thing to do.
Now, I think the other thing, Steve, is when you talk about trying to identify that product, a lot of people think they need to get a totally unique product that's totally new. No one's ever thought of it before. You're the first person ever to come up with this concept. And I think that's the biggest myth out there. Because there's two things. If you get a totally unique product that no one's ever thought of, the amount of money you need to educate the market on that product is huge. And if you're starting a small business, you don't normally have that funding and that to do that. Yeah, so you'll develop this most amazing product, and you just don't have the marketing budget to get out there and make everyone aware of it. So it's more important to find product in a particular sector, because if a sector is selling and they're selling, I just use very simply like a T-shirt brand. There's thousands of people selling T-shirts. So you at least know that people buy T-shirts.
Yeah.
If anyone's in the market, they're going to. But it's now, can you differentiate yourself in that market to be different from other T-shirt brands? And that's the difficulty, is trying to find that. Because if you just in that entry level buying T-shirts from China, that makes you very difficult to make your T-shirt different from other T-shirts. If you can, in terms of design or imagery or whatever, then you might have some. So that's the key part of that. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. It does. It's a really important part, especially getting back to that whole thing of you don't have to come up with some unique new, product to be successful. Sometimes it's repurposing a product that might sit in another niche It might even just be that it's a different color, and you bring it into the niche that you think would work. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole science behind this niche selection as well, because the next thing that you do is you start looking at the competition. You also start looking at whether that market actually has, legs in it to make money from it. It's no use, like you said, bringing a T-shirt in, and you're competing against, say, Kmart, where they can sell a $2 T-shirt. You're going to get that same quality and the same T-shirt in, and then try and compete against them and sell it at $50. It's just not going to work for you. You have to have a point of differentiation that makes it maybe unique, or it suits a different market. So yeah, there's lots of great examples out there, but and I don't want to give too much away as far as, on my course, there's a lot of this training, so I don't want to give away obviously that training in this format. But just talking in generality, that there's things that you can bring into a different niche that will be very successful. Some of the things that I was looking at, the other things I was looking at in my niches was, we've got a teenage daughter. We're actually looking at a period swimwear line, and we were going to do something on that pathway. It actually came back down to the profit margins that you'd get from something like that. The SKUs, so SKUs are where you're looking at the different sizes, different colors, different types. All of that didn't work out, and that was that scientific process that we went through, that you started understanding that it wasn't worth it, wasn't viable as a product or a niche. Some of the other things that we came up with were other camping related products. We actually have some other ideas that we look to introduce later on in our own line that we've started with the bags. But no, bags worked really well for us. I went against your advice, really. The point that you sort of made a little bit, which was you don't have to reinvent something. We did a little bit. Not that bags are unique to camping, but we then went and redesigned a bag and made it really unique, which was bold, because it is probably the easiest thing to do is probably try and grab a product that's out there and reapply it to a different niche. That's probably the easiest and best way to get into e-commerce. I found a gap, a pain point, and then I've solved it with a very unique product. But that's where, it pushes my margins up a bit because I'm making something from scratch. So, and what about you, John? How have you gone about it?
So for us, with the family, we lived in Finland for 6-7 years. And one thing we realized when we went to Finland was that our South African clothes weren't geared for the cold. We arrived there, it was -15 at the start, and from then on it just got colder, and it gets to -30. And you lose probably 90% of your heat through your head and through your feet. So that's where you lose most of your heat. So without the right headgear and without the right socks and boots, you're just never going to survive. And what we found is in the early stages when we first got there, we just hated going out into the cold because it was just absolutely freezing. You start to get cold, and it's just unbearable. So we thought, well, and then we started to speak to local people and say, oh, no, you need to buy these type of socks and these beanies and these type of things. So then we started to get properly kitted out. And once you're properly kitted, you can actually enjoy being out because you actually embrace the cold, and it's fresh and it's exhilarating in that. So it becomes totally different. And when we moved to Australia, I met a Finnish guy living in Australia here, and we sort of discussed this at length. And we then decided that maybe this is a good niche product to also do in Australia here, because a lot of Australians go skiing, or they travel to Europe or the US, or go to New Zealand in the winter and that, and
or just live in cold Melbourne. Cold Melbourne needs good gear.
or Canberra. So,
or Canberra.
And so we started saying, well, maybe there's an opportunity to get these sort of products. And what's been interesting, when we first started, we said, well, we're only going to market into like the southern states because this is where it's colder. But a lot of our purchases have been in Queensland.
Yeah.
And that started us to realize, because a lot of people are retired into Queensland and they go traveling to Europe and all over. So they need the kit.
Yeah.
And you can't just get any top kit. So that's the sort of the way we started. And our differentiation was we don't want to get stuff from China because there's so much stuff coming in from China. And the Finns have been making these products for hundreds of years.
Yes.
For the cold, and they know what's required. So we thought, well, that becomes our niche. So we don't compete in that bottom end, so the entry level. So if you want a $20 beanie, be my guest. I can
go to
some websites to go to.
Yeah.
But if you want proper kit that's going to protect you and that you can rely on, that's going to breathe properly, that's going to be wick the moisture, that's going to, even if you get rained on, it's going to be able to absorb some moisture up to a certain limit. So all those type of things, then we have the kit for you. So that was our sort of thinking, the way we thought we could try and position ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not for everybody. And because it's expensive and it's been made sustainably and it's been made with the beanies are, our top end range beanies, they've got the extra thick, they've got extra wool in them, they've got extra length, so they come down further over the ears and neck and that to cut out the wind. And those aren't going to be, you might be able to get a $50 or $60 beanie, but that's not going to perform the same for you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like I've only had I had a package arrive that we got from you the other day for socks and beanies. So I've only had them for a week, but I can attest to what you're saying. I remember traveling through Switzerland about a decade ago. I remember one day needing a good pair of socks. I went into some adventure shop, got a pair of their local socks. And I've still got those same pair of socks 10 years later. That's the kind of quality that you get, from that European sort of influence. The technology is different, the materials are different, the quality is different. I challenge anyone who owns a pair of socks that they've had for 10 years, and I wore them yesterday, doing the gardening because they're that thick quality sock, just like the ones that that I've received from you now. So I can't wait to test them and still be, wrapped to be talking about your brand in 10 years' time.
But the thing is, our socks they're multi-layer, they're technical type socks. So it's quite different to just a normal cheap sock that's made out of one layer, out of one material, whatever. So the materials are mixed and blended.
6 months out of a big W sock, and you get 10 years out of something from Europe where it's made properly by the right materials. So that's the difference.
Steve, what I was interested in is, so you got your bag, you went through developing the product, you've gone through 3 or 4 iterations to get the final product. And how did you go about testing the market? Because that was really interesting to me. I've never really thought about that. I've always been a guy, just once you get your product, now we have to jump in and go wholeheartedly at selling it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
I think initially I tried a method where I had the one good product. Actually, no, before I had the one good product, I had the prototype, and I thought, well, should I try and get it into a local, ARB shop, a camping shop, and I did. I tested it there for 2 weeks. I set up like a little survey. Put a prize to it, trying to encourage people, and I got zero interest. I then sent it out to a bunch of different people, not just friends and family, different people that I was linked with in this e-commerce community, asked them to review it. And I started getting, I guess, a little bit of an indication of maybe the colors that people liked and the functions that it had. That was my first testing. But then what I've done is I've just really invested heavily into the organic social media. So trying to show people the bag, taking it to different locations, showing some of the unique functions of the bag. So my bag's a little bit unlike anything else out there on the market. It's got dividers, it's got waterproof and odorproof chambers, it's got stay-up lid technology so you can access it easily when you're accessing it from the side of the car. It stores your boots, it stores, all your toiletries. So very unique, features to it. What I then had to do is try and show that in videos, and then I pushed it out obviously as much as I could. I've been engaging as organically as I can, literally, talking to people, calling people, getting them to call me to ask me more about it. We then went through a period where it was a bit of indecision. Do we purchase, the first order? bring them here, and then just try and sell them and continue on that pathway? Or do I do a pre-sale strategy and see if there is interest in the market? So we launched a pre-sales, campaign where, again, we were just really pushing out good content and trying to get people to adopt, as early adopters, adopt a first bag. So purchase it at a really reduced price, because we're doing organic marketing, not paid marketing. And what we're able to do is get enough interest to really validate it in our minds that we're onto something. I've had a lot of engagement through different communities in that camping space. So YouTube communities, Instagram communities, TikTok communities, where I've been trying to push out the content. They've come back to me and said, we want to get on board. We want to be an early adopter, purchase a bag, support your growth, tell you that we think that this is going to solve a bunch of pain points that most campers have, and that's validated it for us. So that was our strategy. It's not probably for everybody, that strategy, but it's worked for us because it's really confirmed that out of the first 100 bags, which was our minimum order quantity that we have to be able to buy, we couldn't get any less than that. I've half sold that order, which is validated in my mind that there's a market for it.
And Steve, to me, what is fascinating is you're busy setting up your website, so that's not complete yet.
Yes.
But you wanted to see how committed, because people often say, oh no, when you're there, let me know and I'll definitely buy one.
Yes.
And when you're there, you contact them and they definitely won't buy one. So word of mouth means nothing. But
yeah.
You set up a Stripe account, and so you promoted it, and then people could click on the link and go to a Stripe account, and they had to then pay upfront.
Yes.
So you know that the bags that you've sold are 100% sold because people have already paid for them.
Yes.
So to me, that's a very interesting thing. So even though you didn't have your website ready, you found this other way to really validate that the concept's right and it's working.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty risky, I think, both on the customer's point of view, because there's so many bad scammers and people out there. But I guess the people that have bought from me, people that I had never met before, I think the way that I've been able to, I guess, get their confidence is that I'm a real person. I've tried to show that I'm a real person. I'm raw. If you follow any of my socials, I'm not bullshitting. I'm not scripted. I'm not, I'm just trying my best to put myself out there. These people are super trusting, but what I've guaranteed to them is that I'm going to be engaging. I've nearly talked to every single customer that I've sold a bag to so far. As soon as they make a payment, within seconds, I've tried to send back a personalized email to say, here's my phone number. I am a real guy, and if I can't meet your expectations, I'm going to refund you as well. So I guess my strategy is taking a personalized approach, showing people that I am, human as well, trying to keep them updated as best as I can, but I can't control all the elements of the world. If things change in the next month or two, strategically, internationally, that I'm sure would, put dampeners on my ability to provide their bag. But, that transparency and honest sort of way that I've engaged, I think has got me across the line. And, obviously I appreciate every single customer so much for trusting me. But, my promise to you is that I'm going to keep you updated. I'm a real person. If you want my phone number, here it is. Call me. If you've got a problem, I'll refund you. That's the approach that I've taken. I think that's resonated well with the community.
No, definitely. And I think that's come through your social media and all the videos you're putting out.
Yeah,
so
just a strategy.
Really
it's not even sure that I actually knew what strategy I had either. It sort of organically happened as well. But just having a crack. We're having a crack. I'm trying to solve a problem for people, but also, I'm trying to help. Kim, my wife, get out of what she's doing, give her more freedom and more time to enjoy her life by giving us an opportunity to grow this business. So. Yeah, I mean, what's some of the reasons around you starting Scott and Parker, for your family? What's your sort of reasons?
Well, the thing is, I think what's important for me is we wanted something that we could do, that we could always continue working.
Yeah.
you don't want to work, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 47 or 48 weeks a year.
Yes.
But you want to be stimulated and challenged, and you want to have a purpose to get up and do stuff. That was sort of what we were looking for. And we wanted something that, if you work in corporate or you work in business, there's going to come a time where the guys are, maybe you don't fit in here anymore. But when you do this type of thing, we can then manage it to how we want to manage it. And that's specifically why we want to sort of develop a e-com brand.
Yeah, and it's a big difference between, going and running a sandwich shop or something that you're fixed at that location for, however long it is until you sell it, or you have to outsource it to people to run for you. Yeah, e-com gives you a lot of flexibility, doesn't it? So
yeah, but then it's also not easy. So
no,
so that's you just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
and our learning curve at the moment is just, we're just getting blown out the water because there's stuff there. Our learning curve is so steep. It's just something that's just is fascinating.
Yeah.
And so from a mental stimulation, it just drives you every day.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're enjoying, So.
Even this week, you're really throwing yourself into being more in front of the camera and trying to tell your story to connect with your, customer sort of community. That's something you're learning even just this week, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's quite frightening too. So.
Yeah.
And I'm only doing it because you're pushing me to do
I try to push, yeah. Oh, no, we for the listeners, it's just that great relationship. This is what we're talking about, building a community around you as well. And that's what hopefully our listeners can do even amongst yourselves. We could build a community of people. Maybe we're in a different niche than you are and we don't have the expertise, but someone else, another listener is in that area and they can provide support or help. That's what we're aiming to achieve here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very good, Steve.
No, thank you, John. I think that that session's been really good just to talk through some of the other parts of e-com that maybe people aren't aware of or they haven't considered. But hopefully there's a couple of pearls of wisdom that people get to take away from today's episode as well.
Yeah, and I think business is fascinating because it never quite goes in the direction. You might have this great business plan and you think you're going in one direction and it ends up going somewhere else that you never ever considered. So that's why I think it's great just to get in and do it and make sure you're doing action and moving forward.
We'll try and catch up again next week, John, and hopefully there's some comments that start appearing in these episodes so that we can pursue things that you're interested in talking about as well.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Talk to you soon.